You check your bank account before buying something small. Not because it's expensive, because you need to know if you're safe. That's where money starts. Not as numbers, not as strategy, but as a feeling. And that feeling changes at every level, from 0 to 10 million. Most people think more money just means more comfort. It doesn't. It changes how you think, how you decide, what you tolerate, and what you walk away from. And the uncomfortable part? Each level solves problems, while quietly creating new ones. So let's walk through it. Not the fantasy, the reality. At 0, money is emotional. You're not thinking in percentages. You're thinking in survival. Rent, food, transport. Every decision carries weight. A small mistake isn't a lesson. It's a consequence. You don't ask, is this a good deal? You ask, can I afford to be wrong? And that pressure does something subtle. It shortens your thinking. You optimize for today, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. That's why advice about investing barely works here. You can't think long-term when short-term is unstable. Then comes the first shift, around 10,000. Not wealth, but breathing room. You have margin now. A mistake won't break you, just annoy you. And suddenly, your brain changes. You start delaying decisions. You compare options. You think, maybe I shouldn't spend this. Which sounds obvious until you realize that's a luxury. Because restraint requires stability. This is where saving becomes addictive. Not because of the money, because of the control. At 100,000, something interesting happens. Life starts to feel predictable. You're not rich, but you're not fragile anymore. Bills don't scare you. They exist. You stop reacting to money and start planning with it. This is where people discover investing, and also where they misunderstand it. Because the idea is simple. Put money into assets. Let time do the work. But here's the uncomfortable truth. At this level, time is still doing most of the work. You are the asset. Your income matters more than your investments. Which is why most people here feel stuck. They're doing everything right. Saving, investing, and yet progress feels slow. Because it is. Compounding doesn't feel magical early on. It feels invisible. Around 500,000, the game changes. Not dramatically, but structurally. You start thinking less about earning and more about positioning. Where is your money? What is it doing? Can it grow without you? This is where assets start to matter. Real ones. Businesses, equity, systems. And something subtle happens. You stop asking, how do I make more money? And start asking, how do I make money work harder than I do? It sounds like a mindset shift. It's not. It's a necessity. Because effort doesn't scale. Leverage does. At 1 million, you expect to feel different. Most people don't. That's the quiet irony. On paper, it's a milestone. In reality, it's just stability at a higher level. You have options now. You could step back, but you probably won't. Because your lifestyle has expanded. Your expectations, too. And here's the part no one talks about. The cost of your life quietly rises to meet your net worth. Better house, better experiences, better standards. Nothing extreme, just slightly more. And that slightly more compounds faster than your investments. So even at $1 million, you don't feel free. You feel responsible. Around 5 million, control becomes the real asset. You're no longer optimizing for money. You're optimizing for time, who you work with, what you work on, whether you work at all. This is where wealth becomes selective. You don't chase opportunities, you filter them. And ironically, this is where money starts finding you. Because access changes. You're introduced to deals, private opportunities, networks that weren't visible before. It's not luck, it's proximity. Wealth clusters. And once you're inside, the rules are different. Then comes 10 million. This is where the narrative breaks. Because most people think this is where life becomes perfect. It doesn't. It becomes abstract. Money stops being a constraint, but it also stops being a clear goal. You're no longer solving problems. You're choosing which problems to engage with. And that creates a strange tension. Because when survival disappears, so does urgency. And without urgency, what drives you? This is where reputation quietly replaces money. Your name becomes leverage. Opportunities come before you ask. People assume competence. Doors open based on perception, not proof. And that's powerful, but also fragile. Because now your downside isn't losing money. It's losing trust. So here's the uncomfortable pattern. At 0, money controls your emotions. At 10,000, you control your spending. At 100,000, you control your planning. At 500,000, you control your strategy. At 1 million, you control your options. At 5 million, you control your time. At 10 million, you control your exposure. What you attach your name to, what risks you take publicly, what you choose to ignore. But notice something. At no point does money fully solve the problem. It just changes it. Stress becomes responsibility. Scarcity becomes expectation. Work becomes identity. And freedom becomes a question. Because the real shift isn't financial, it's psychological. Money doesn't just upgrade your life, it upgrades your decisions. And every upgrade comes with pressure. More choices, more complexity, more consequences. Which leads to the part most people don't expect. There is no final level. No point where everything locks into place. No clean moment where you say, this is enough. Because enough isn't a number. It's a decision. And most people never make it. So the real question isn't, how do I get to 10 million? It's, what changes in me at every level on the way there? Because that version of you is the one that determines whether money becomes a tool or just a more expensive problem. And if every level comes with a new trade-off, then maybe the question isn't how much you need, but which version of the problem you're willing to live with.